80 kilometers an hour, slightly uphill, full throttle. Yes, it's obviously not very fast, but it wasn't intending to be. It never said it was going to be quick. This used to be the cheapest SUV on sale in Australia, the MG ZS Excite base model. 1.5 litre non-turbo engine. You could argue there's no fuss with this engine. It's not very complex, so it should be pretty reliable in the long term. But yeah, it doesn't have much power. It's now paired with a CVT automatic as opposed to the old 4-speed automatic. But that has helped drop fuel consumption from around 7 litres per 100 to 6.7 litres per 100. The ZS remains as the best-selling small SUV on sale in Australia. Even though it's no longer the cheapest SUV you can buy, that crown is now handed to the Chery Tiggo 4. It is still quite a practical and cheap package. $26,990 drive away for the base spec model, and you are getting a lot more features and packaging compared with the predecessor. Just firstly, the design, I reckon it looks pretty good. It takes the shape of the latest ZS hybrid that we tested not that long ago. It does feature these standard 16-inch alloy wheels in dark grey, which look pretty nice. They look neat and tidy, but they are wrapped in 215/60 Linglong tyres. They're not the best in my opinion. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. The black trimming around the bottom kind of contrasts nicely with this white colour, and around at the back, it's just neat and tidy proportions. The most impressive element though is the interior. It's actually quite nice in here, considering this is, you know, one of the cheapest SUVs money can buy. Push button start, even on the base model. 10.25-inch touchscreen as standard. The upper spec models do come with, sorry, just turn that climate off, do come with a fully digital instrument cluster as well. But this does come with, how did I change that? The iSmart MG Safety Suite, as well as live tire pressure monitoring, which I think is pretty good. And it's got a few different display modes as well. You've also got road sign recognition and the same steering wheel as the Essence top spec model. I still don't fully understand these buttons that MG's gone for lately. I mean, you do get used to it. I think this is all for the driving systems like the cruise control and all of that. And then this is for the touchscreen, as well as when you hit this little folder button, you can toggle through the different displays between the gauges there. Fit and finish and quality though is really good. It's got this material across the dash extending to the door trims. It is plastic up at the top here, even though it looks like leather. It's got fake stitching, but it feels all pretty good. Kind of brushed trimming there along the door handle. It is all plastic. But for a base model, you've got to hand it to MG. The quality in here is really good. The steering wheel feels nice, even though it is a plastic steering wheel. Kind of a bit deceiving the way that it's got the perforated sections like leather steering wheels that you can get. Do have a leather gear lever boot or leatherette, and unfortunately only up and down adjustment for the steering column. I don't know why these new brands just don't fit rake and reach. So the driving position is okay for me. I'd rather the seat go a little bit lower, and I'd rather be able to pull the steering wheel closer to my chest, because the way it is there, it means I've got to slide my seat forward a little bit, and then my legs are a bit more bent than I'd prefer. In the back, it is quite spacious, plenty of leg room, a small center driveline tunnel, even though it's not four-wheel drive, and a good amount of headroom. I'm only 170 centimeters, but as you can see, my head's nowhere near the ceiling, and I've also got excellent leg room in my seating configuration. Unfortunately, there are no climate vents in the back, but you could argue this is just a small cabin, so much of the air is going to come through and reach the back pretty quickly, but there's no charging ports and there's no center flipping armrest either. And in the back, we've got a spacious boot. It does come with a floor that you can sort of, well, obviously pull out. It's missing in this test vehicle, but yeah, you've got a dual stage floor, so you can hide things underneath if you want to. And then there's a space saver spare underneath. You've got little baskets in the side to stop things flying about, and little hooks integrated under there. And you can flip down the rear seats for even more space. It does have a flat floor with the seat folded. I mean, the seat does ramp up a little bit, but considering if you had the floorboard locked in place there, that would all be quite flush. It's good that it does have 60/40 split fold seats as well. Some models like the Tiggo 4, I think, it just has a solid folding seat. All right, let's take it for a spin and see how it goes. I'm not expecting anything special in the performance or handling departments, but you've got to keep that price in mind. $26,990 drive away makes it one of the cheapest new vehicles you can buy, not just for an SUV, but outright. So you can't expect, you know, crazy performance or Lotus style handling. We'll do the performance test later on as well. I'm also planning to do a virtual drag race with the turbo model as well in a different video later on. The Excite is only available with the 1.5 non-turbo, while the Essence top spec trim level is available in turbo and non-turbo form. The first thing I notice when you're driving is the throttle sensitivity, or the throttle mapping is very responsive off the mark. Like the 0 to 10 kilometers an hour would be off the charts, which makes it feel a bit punchier than probably already is. I think they've done that on purpose, so it is still practical and, you know, reasonably fun to zip around town where you're only going, you know, 40 kilometers an hour or 50 kilometers an hour max. But as you'll see out on the highway, overtaking performance is not very good for this class as well. As before, practicality, driving around in the city is very good. I've got good visibility out the front. I can see around the A-pillar pretty easily. I can see over the top of that side mirror. And I've got a good sense of where the wheels are positioned on the road. So even, yeah, navigating through a tight car park like that, it's pretty easy. It's not intimidating to drive. Some SUVs, you know, the dash is quite high, or the window sill is quite high, and you just don't get a good, or you don't have good confidence behind the wheel, especially if you're a beginning driver. So just then, moving off the line, I'm only giving the throttle a tiny bit, and it's sort of like taking off a bit more than I would prefer. Obviously you get used to these sorts of things. I don't have it in sport mode or anything like that. This is just in the default setting. Everything is just left on. Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a slingshot feeling, or elastic feeling throttle, where you apply it and then you kind of back off and it sort of just keeps moving a little bit, a bit like a turbo engine, I guess. Be good if it just sort of cut straight off, but I think the throttle sensitivity is just a little bit too sharp. I can see what they're trying to do there to make it feel zippier, but I think it just needs to be toned down just a little bit. The throttle pedal position also is slightly towards the center, and you've got this kind of the edge of the cabin to your right, where the pedal would normally be in most vehicles. You've just got to get used to just slightly moving your leg over to the left so you can fit it on the pedal. The handling doesn't feel that impressive. That's just the speed warning going off. It's saying 20 for some reason. It must have picked up a 20 somewhere. I don't know what's going on there. You can turn all that stuff off as usual, but you've got to do it each time you reset the vehicle as per the latest regulations. As I was saying though, the build quality in here and the fit and finish is really good for this class. Even cabin quietness, as I'm driving along now, hitting a few little bumps and potholes and things, it thuds over bumps rather than crashes and bangs over bumps. Even though it does have a pretty basic rear end, torsion beam rear end, it feels fine in city environments. But we'll go out now into the open road and see how it handles and see how it drives there. Out on the highway, the steering is surprisingly heavy or weighted. There's definite weight to it. Kind of reminds me of an old car without power steering. Now obviously you can drive an old car without power steering just fine. It just reminds me of that. And it's a bit heavier than other SUVs in this class. Just feels doughy and it's not completely precise. I suspect that some of that feeling is due to the cheap Ling Long tyres. That brings about a good point. If you're buying this for your son or daughter and they're, you know, their first vehicle, do you really want them driving something with the cheapest or among the cheapest tyres money can buy? After all, the tyres are the part that connects the vehicle with the road. So why have the cheapest option you can get? You want something that's decent quality. I get that the engine is not very powerful and it's not a very quick vehicle. That's perfect for a vehicle like this, especially if you're buying it for a learning driver. But I think the handling department needs to be pushed up a bit. And I suspect, I haven't tested it yet, but I predict that braking performance won't be very good, partly due to those tyres. I've tested a lot of vehicles over the years, and going from 100 to a dead stop in around 40 meters or less is decent for this type of vehicle. From a dual cab ute, so they're about 2 tons or more, with highway terrain tires, you can expect around 40 to 42 or 43 meters. And then all-terrain tires around 43 meters or more. So if this stops in 42 or 43 or more, then that's just not acceptable. If I was going to buy something like this, straight away get rid of these tires and get something decent on there. But anyway, as I said, I haven't tested it yet, so we'll find out in a minute. I've got most of the safety systems turned off. You can easily access all this stuff just with this little car button within the touchscreen. It remains there. It's a main menu that stays there, so that's good. You just hit that. Then you've got all of your features. I've turned the speed alert off because it's picking up the wrong speed sometimes, like in most modern vehicles. I've got the lane keep assist off as well, lane departure assist, and then you can turn the driver monitoring camera off as well. But I've left it on for now because I want to see how it reacts. And so far so good. It hasn't sent any warning messages at all. Even while I'm talking, moving my hands around, including looking at the screen, I think the calibration is quite good. But yeah, if you want to turn that off, just hit the button, hit OK, and then it's off. That's part of the latest regulations as well. There's got to be 2 button presses, I think, to turn most of this stuff off. And then, of course, it will all reset when you start the vehicle again. Out on the open road, the ride quality is pretty good. And as I said, it absorbs bumps. It doesn't crash and bang. It just sort of thuds and absorbs the bumps, the impacts. The handling is pretty good. There is a bit of body wobble going on. If you do a bit of slalom, or during the slalom test I did on the private road, yeah, it just feels like the body sort of catches up with itself after a split second or so. Again though, for this segment and for this price range, you can't really expect anything more. I think it is a lot better than the previous model though. It does feel much more secure and confident on the road. And by the way, I did find a different steering setting. So you've got sport, normal and comfort modes specifically for the steering. And in comfort mode, it does, yeah, it's definitely a bit lighter, but you've still got that kind of squirmy, doughy feeling at the other end, which I think comes down to the tyres. Overall though, yeah, it's a decent handling package, definitely better than the predecessor. In terms of fuel economy, I'm averaging 9.8 at the moment, but that's with mostly enthusiastic driving, a bit of highway driving though. I think you could get that down a little bit more, or a fair bit more. I'm not sure if you could reach the official rating of 6.7 though, but maybe 7.5. I'm keen to test the turbo model because I think that would actually be, or has the potential to offer better real world economy, because in this you've got to keep pushing the accelerator just to maintain highway or traffic speed. Like going downhill is obviously fine, but wait until we get to the bottom, you push the pedal and you're not really getting anywhere. And just driving along a flat road, you've got to just keep pushing that accelerator pedal. And it's just whining and moaning as per typical of a CVT transmission. Yeah, so along here, 80 kilometers an hour, I've got to keep my foot, I'm probably, you know, pushing in the pedal about a quarter of the way just to maintain a constant speed. Whereas I think in the turbo, you might be able to just coast along a bit more, and turbo engines are usually more efficient anyway. But I'm keen to test it, so we'll do a virtual drag race between this and the turbo model to see the difference.